Hey everyone, Josh here, and this is my review of Gamera, Revenge of Iris, or as the original title calls it, Gamera III, Unfinished Struggle, and this is the third in the 90s Gamera trilogy, and as you're probably aware of if you're watching this video, or if you've been following my series, this movie is actually a little hard to get a hold of, but apparently Milk Entertainment is releasing it on Blu-ray sometime in 2011. We'll see, I'll get it then, but I have managed to receive my DVD copy in the mail, the old ADV Films release, which is actually not bad, to be perfectly honest. Video quality is not the best, but the extras features are pretty decent, so if you're looking for it, I would actually advise picking it up if you can afford it and feel like shelling out the money for it. Not terribly expensive, but it's more than you would normally pay. All that aside, though, again, I do apologize for my lack of videos, final year of university, but that's neither here or there. Let's get to reviewing some giant monster movies. Gamera, The Revenge of Iris, and that is what I will be calling it for the duration of the video, just for clarity's sake there, is the third in the 90s Gamera trilogy, as I mentioned, and quite a different beast than the previous two films, although very connected to it. Two things really strike me about this movie. One, its sense of continuity, and two, it's a wildly different tone from the previous movies. And as I'll get to the tone in a minute, but regarding the continuity, it's really interesting that you actually see a lot of the characters from the previous two movies gather together here, and that's interesting because as far as I'm aware, very, very, very few giant monster movies do that. Occasionally you'll get reoccurring actors, okay, a lot, and on occasion you'll see flashbacks to different events, and the Godzilla series is a total clusterfuck for continuity, but overall you really don't see this level of connection between films, especially ones made so close together and so closely tied together. You get most of the cast actually from the original back. You get kind of the person carrying the emblem back, who could communicate with Gamera. You get the old failure detective back, and there's a lot of different things. I won't want to spoil too much, but suffice to say, though, that if you liked Gamera Guardian of the Universe and Gamera Attack of the Legion, you should definitely seek out this movie because it is actually a closure to the storyline, so to speak. And especially, like I said, mentioned in my last review, like in the second movie in the 90s Gamera trilogy, Attack of Legion, they have the Tokyo Tower still destroyed. There's more of that in this movie, and no embarrassing camera tricks this time around, thankfully. But overall, it's really interesting to see that it allows you to build deeper characters. Not incredibly deep, this is still a giant monster movie, but they actually do have some depth to them, which is a fantastic change, to be frank, because while I love all these silly monster movies, it's always nice to see something with actual quality to it. I mean, actual narrative quality to it, I should say, because some of the effects are quality, but that again, besides. The story is really interesting this time around, actually. A lot of it, you don't really even see Gamera a whole lot. He is mostly in the background or referenced or talked about, and there's a whole lot of different things happening in this movie, actually, and it can be kind of confusing at times, maybe, especially if you haven't seen the other ones. Don't even watch this if you haven't seen the other ones, because it's not going to make any fucking sense. But there's a lot going on. The government has to deal with Gamera. They kind of revert on their old ideas thanks to this new project that they're doing. There's kind of the small-town discovery of the monster, and I really actually love, as I've mentioned before, this kind of Japanese urban fantasy where all these people discovered the giant monster in this small rural area. That's back here again. No short shorts this time, thankfully. And they also have the main, failed detective living his life off there, as well as Gamera's perspective, stopping the new monsters that are coming about as well. Again, particularly interesting, relating back to the continuity, is that Gios is back, and in numbers, great numbers. Apparently the entire world is under assault by these Gios creatures. And, of course, there's a new monster, Iris, as the title would imply, or as the English title would imply. Interesting beast, interesting beast. I will say that it is a little difficult to really get to know this new monster, because while you see him a lot in the infant stages, and I really like the whole smaller monster work in this, it wasn't all just kind of large suit work or CG, which I will say is very great for this movie, but then it got again in a minute, largely because the monsters are placed in the background of the story. They're the focal point, but you don't see them as much. I like this approach, particularly because, and this is getting to the tone, this is a very dark movie. Even when Gamera is saving people, he kills people, and it's actually really interesting. One of the characters had their parents killed by Gamera as he was stomping through Tokyo trying to stop Gyros in Guardian of the Universe, and that was really cool for continuity's sake, although the flashback had the older Gamera suit. There's a new one in this one, and kind of weird. I don't know how he changed in a couple years, but whatever. And As well, there's one attack right at the beginning of the movie, more or less, is that when Gamera is trying to stop these Gyos creatures from destroying Tokyo, and he causes so much damage. The city literally lays in flames. I think it's Tokyo. Forgive me if it's some. No, I haven't watched it in a couple weeks. But suffice to say, it is a bloodbath, and there's a lot of people dying. This is not a movie you'd want to show to your kids, despite the giant monsters in it. And if your kid likes giant monsters, I mean. Apparently, most of them don't, just me. Anyway, overall, though, it's a really nice change of pace, actually. The trilogy has been going that way. Guardian of the Universe was probably the lightest of the three, then Attack of Legion was a little darker, but this one is a whole nother step upwards. And like I said, that's really interesting. It's nice to have that kind of tone. Filmmakers don't often attempt that kind of thing with giant monster movies, and I think it's actually a very rich source material for that kind of thing, if you can do it right. It's a very touchy subject matter with some, frankly, rather silly roots. Fun, but silly roots. So trying to have a modern audience really buy into this concept nowadays is difficult. And for the record, this movie was, again, made in the 90s, but it's a very contemporary movie for the most part. Unlike Guardian of the Universe, and in some extent, Attack of the Legion, the clothing is very generic. I remember Guardian of the Universe had like primary colors on, and it just looked very early 90s. But this one, no such problem here. But I realized I should get moving on this because I'm already talking about 6.5 minutes, really, without being incredibly specific about anything. But like I said, the story is very interesting. You see it from a lot of different perspectives. You see a good amount of monster action, although it's framed in a completely different way. And again, I'll get to that in a second. But you get a lot of good monster action, a lot of good characterization, a lot of good returning characters, and frankly, I thought a good conclusion to the trilogy. And it could stand on its own, really could. The characters, like I said, just fantastic for the most part for this type of movie. Nothing like Citizen Kane or Kurosawa, but I wasn't really expecting that with Gamera. Frankly, the get to this is frankly pretty amazing. The effects, like I said, there was actually a lot of CG. I can't speak today. And it works really well for the most part. Despite this being made in the 90s, you can tell there was a lot of effort put into the CG. There's only a couple parts of it that look kind of shady. Some of the smaller puppetry and suit work is not as great, but at the same time, much better than many other things. You could tell, like I said, there was a lot of love and care put into this movie, so the fact that it doesn't look embarrassing is really great, and the CG really adds to a lot of the movie, particularly when Gamera's aerial combat with Iris was really fantastic and really exciting. They had some interesting moments here and there. There was some interesting effects that I won't spoil near the end of the movie, and God almighty, this is a gory giant monster movie, I gotta say. There's very few that actually have a lot of gore in them, but this one actually has honest-to-goodness gore, and I won't spoil it, but it is a very violent giant monster movie. If any of this is sounding like something you'd like at all, go see this. You're probably gonna love it. Like I said, there's a good amount of giant monster action, but I did want to touch on how it was framed. It's framed usually from the perspective of human characters. There's some cases when it's not, but most cases it's from the perspective of human characters lower down. It's a little hard to make out at times, but I think it really adds to the enormity of the fight scenes and really helps it in the long run. But people may disagree with me here. Keep in mind. The music in this I actually really liked, is worth noting. The 90s trilogy has been particularly good about most of its music, but this one really does up the ante, so to speak. There's some really great work here. Honestly, a few tracks I've downloaded, and I probably shouldn't say that, but I can't buy the soundtrack anywhere here without importing it for $100, so I don't think it's too much of a thing to say. But the music is actually really quite the standout. It really does draw you into the movie, make you feel a lot more for the characters in the immediate fight scenes. There's a couple cheesy moments. Overall, this is a fantastic movie. Some of the puppet work a little fails right at the beginning, with one of the fallen Gyos, and there's some characters that don't come quite to as much of a better conclusion as I would have liked, but overall, Gamera 3, Revenge of Iris, or Gamera 3, Unfinished Struggle, Gamera Revenge of Iris, is an amazing monster movie, easily one of my favorites. For my money, I'm thinking, for my memory, I meant, is that I did like Gamera the Brave better. Don't kill me. But I will need to watch it again, and that is probably 2 or 3 videos away from this in the series. So, until next time, watch Gamera Revenge of Iris. It's a fantastic movie.